Thank you for everyone for joining us today. My name is Lindsay Humphreys, and I'm the Program Director for Junior Achievement of New Mexico. For those of you that are unfamiliar, Junior Achievement's mission is to inspire and prepare young people to own their economic success. And we do that by doing programs that bring the community and education together. So this program is called JA Virtual Career Speaker Series, and it is a program that is open to JA students across New Mexico. And we highlight business professionals, entrepreneurs, and innovative thinkers from a variety of industries. And each featured speaker will share details about their education, their job, and their career journey. Before we get started, here are a few virtual meeting etiquette reminders. So like I said, this is recorded and it will be uploaded onto our YouTube channel a few days after the event. So you can share that YouTube link with anyone who might be interested. And then for our records, we do know that sometimes there are students behind the teachers. So if we could please have you type in your first and last name into the chat box at this time. And if you are an educator on the call, if you could please type in how many students there are behind you, that would be great. During the speaker's presentation, please make sure all of your mics are muted. And then when we have questions at the end, we will be able to answer any questions that are written in the chat box, or we will open it up to that you can unmute and you can ask questions. So today we are so excited to welcome Caity Sobel, the Director of Corporate Partnership Activation and for New Mexico United, and Chanel Wiese, the Community Relations and Executive Director for Somos Unidos Foundation. Chanel and Caity, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. It's really exciting to be here. Just give me 1 second so I can pull up our presentation. Okay, Lindsay, how's it looking?
It looks great.
Great. Okay, well, welcome everybody. We're really excited to be speaking with you today about careers in athletics in general, and then also specifically about our careers in athletics at New Mexico United. I'm sure we've got some fans and some people who are diehard New Mexico United fans in the audience, so we're really excited to be able to bring this different perspective to you today. And we're just excited to hop into careers in athletics, especially as two women in careers in athletics. So I'm sure if you've been to a New Mexico United game, you already know about the awesome atmosphere, and you can see in the photos how incredible energy and enthusiasm just comes from the stands. And there are flags waving and drums beating, and even at the end of the game, like, players will come to the sideline and see the fans. So that relationship between the players and the fans is so strong for us. And we're currently playing at Isotopes Park, so I included a photo of that there. So we have a great partnership with the Isotopes. They allow us to play in the stadium, and then the baseball diamond turns into a soccer field, which is really cool to see. We've also included just a couple of players that you've probably seen their faces around. Devin Sandoval is our hometown guy. He is New Mexico Drew, and he's our vice captain. And so I really hope that if you've been to a New Mexico United game, that even though you're missing us, you know that we'll be back stronger than ever in 2021, since we don't have any home games this year. And if you haven't been to a New Mexico United game, you know, I'm excited to formally invite you right now, as soon as tickets go back on sale again in the future. Please come out. It is such a fun experience. And as you can see, it's very electric just from these photos. But a picture says 1,000 words, but there's thousands more to say.
Yeah, and so when you go to a game, you'll see all these different things that are going on, from the tickets that you have to get scanned to things going on the field. And what a lot of people don't know about careers in athletics is that there's more paths that you can take besides being an athlete or being a coach. What you see here is a couple of the departments that we have in our front office. So myself, I'm in the corporate sponsorships department, which is broken into the sales and then the activation side, which is what I do, which is the, issuing of the assets that are in there. So things like you can see in one of the photos, a Meow Wolf logo on the front of the jersey, making sure things like that are getting done. We have our merchandise and our retail store, which you'll see some photos of that as well. That's a really big piece of our organization. We've got our marketing and public relations department who puts out information about us. If we have, a game or a fun event, they'll be the ones putting that out to the news to spread the word. We have our ticketing and box office. So any tickets that we have for our games or even some of our events that we do, we'll put tickets on sale for. And we've had some pretty impressive attendance numbers with that. And that's all due to the hard work that department does. Chanel works with our foundation and community relations. So we do a lot in the community just to improve upon, as much as we possibly can. And then we have our CEO and our executive assistant who really make a lot of this run.
Yeah, and Caity was being very humble. We've actually broken a record in our league for attendance in 2019, so that's very exciting. That means we had the most fans at a game out of, how many teams are there in our league?
There are 36 teams.
So that's pretty impressive. That's very exciting.
Yeah, and so this is just a little bit of background about who we are. You see that fun animation of the Meow Wolf jersey. So that example that I used of showing those logos of our partners, doing the things in the community and with our team that we can do. When I first started with the team in 2018, we had 4 partners, Meow Wolf being one of them. We have now increased to over 75 partners in just 2 short years. So there's a lot of support from businesses around town and the state that want to support this crazy idea that we have to play soccer and make some change. So a little bit about how I got here. I'm originally from Louisville, Kentucky. I moved to New Mexico 2 years ago to work for this team. I went to college at the University of South Carolina, where we were ranked #1 in sports sciences in the world. So my degree, which is sport and entertainment management, was ranked #1 in the world in as far as educational research and the sports sciences. So that was a really fun accomplishment for me to be able to say that I graduated from a top ranked program and it got me this incredible job. Some of the internship experiences that I've had in order to really get as much experience as possible was with another team in our league called Louisville City. So I was able to stay home for a summer and work with that team. They are 2-time USL Cup champions, which we are hoping to get that same level at some point. I actually worked in the operations side, so I was not in sponsorship at that point, but I was able to get a little bit of an introduction into sponsorship, mainly with doing player appearances and for sponsors and doing some stuff with field signage and some halftime shows and things like that. So that was a really fun experience. It introduced me to the world of soccer. I was not a soccer player growing up. I was a softball player growing up, and didn't know if I was necessarily going to like working in soccer. And that internship really opened my eyes, and it became a career goal of mine to be able to work in soccer. One of the other things I was able to do was work for the Masters golf tournament. It's one of the premier golf tournaments in the world. I was able to work in merchandise there and then in customer service for a second year, and to be able to mingle with famous faces, politicians, celebrities. It was such a fun experience and one of my most cherished memories of my time in college. And then my final experience in college that was able to get me a degree was at UFC. I moved to Las Vegas and I worked at their headquarters, and that was my true introduction into sponsorship. I worked in the activation department. Probably the best explanation of what I was able to do there. If you've ever watched a UFC fight, you see the octagon, and that's what's on there is called a canvas, and you see all the different logos. It was my job to design those. So I would work in a system and I would be told these are the partners that are going to have a logo, have at it, make it look as good as possible. And then I would design it, get it approved, and then I would source it. So I would be the one purchasing the canvas, and it is a rather large piece of canvas. So that's just a little bit of some of my background. With all of that, New Mexico United is actually my first job out of college. I graduated in May of 2018 and then started here a few months later. So I've really been able to jumpstart my career here It has been a fast 2 years and a really exciting 2 years. I started off as the partnerships coordinator. So that's really one of the entry-level positions that you'll find in sponsorship in sports. And I was able to kind of climb up the ranks and become the director of corporate partnership activation, where I'm overseeing all of the different logo placements, all the different activations and events that we do. And it's been a wonderful experience.
And you're a fan of UFC too, right?
Yeah, I sure am.
Really special. Great, thank you, Caity. And I'm Chanel Wiese. I'm the executive director of the Somos Unidos Foundation, and that is a brand new arm of New Mexico United that was just launched in May of this year. So the idea was that New Mexico United has been doing all of this community work since day one of it even being a conversation. When Caity was talking about back in the day when there were 4 partners, I mean, even at that period, it was already so community focused. And so what New Mexico United wanted to do was really double down on that commitment and establish a nonprofit arm of New Mexico United. So as you know, Somos Unidos is really the ethos of New Mexico United. And so the Somos Unidos Foundation is where all of that community work is moving to and will live for the next 100 years. And that's really exciting because not every soccer team or team really across all athletics has a foundation. And so it is a rare, special thing that shows the organization's commitment to the community. And so a little bit about my path here. I never intended to work in sports, so I'm a little bit opposite of Caity. Like, she has had her eye on the prize for a very long time and was exposed to this industry at a younger age. I was at the Anderson School of Management at UNM for about 8 years. So I took the 4 years to get my bachelor's. At that time, I was a student employee at UNM in food services, as you'll kind of see there, but it wasn't in a very elevated way. And then when I graduated, there was an opportunity to stay on full-time, take more of an analytical role with UNM Food. So I worked full-time at UNM while getting my MBA. So your MBA usually takes a couple of years, but because I was doing it super part-time, it took me the full 4 years to get my MBA. And what's really great, we're getting into the advice already, even though it's not time for that. I would say that if you're interested in offsetting the costs of your education, and cost may be a barrier for you, consider getting a job at the University of New Mexico, because they have tuition remission, which will cover, when I was there, it covered 8 credit hours a semester. So, that's pretty significant, and was a way for me to afford to be able to get my MBA, even though it took a longer time. I was getting my master's degree experience and my professional experience at the same time. So that was pretty cool. So I was at UNM Food for the 4 years and some change while I was getting my MBA. And I stayed there a little bit after as well. I also have worked in politics in New Mexico on a couple of campaigns. So I worked on a mayoral campaign and a state auditor campaign, and that was just a really good exposure into true startup life. A campaign is a startup that only exists for a short period of time. So you have to build everything up, execute, and then pack it all up, hopefully, when you win. So that was a really good experience that taught me a lot about just being scrappy and getting things done. My most recent position was with the Albuquerque Community Foundation. So you'll kind of see the path of community has always been there, but philanthropy specifically, when I started at the Community Foundation, that taught me a lot about what running a nonprofit organization is like. And the experience at the Community Foundation was more of their job was to grant funds out and make community change that way. And then with the Somos Unidos Foundation, we're definitely more program-based. So we're looking at what actual action can we make, what basically clients in terms of, youth that we might serve in a free clinic or with free coaching. So we're definitely just more program-based. And we're applying for grants from places like the Albuquerque Community Foundation. But with the foundation, the Somos Unidos Foundation, I also help New Mexico United with the rest of its community relations efforts. So we do things like blood drives, the gratitude parades that we held for frontline workers, when COVID and the lockdown kind of first hit. And so I definitely have a role on the full New Mexico United front office team. And then I have the Somos Unidos Foundation to take care of and nurture and fundraise for. And so in that way, Caity and I have very similar positions, but we fund different things for New Mexico United and the Somos Unidos Foundation overall. So you want to give your nuggets of advice?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things that I would say is just never give up on anything. I am the first generation college graduate from my family. That was a major accomplishment for me. And it was just due to the fact that I never wanted to give up. I was in this very unique position of knowing very early on what it is that I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to work in sports. It took me a little while to figure out exactly my path to get there in terms of working in sponsorship. But I pushed through and saw the reward of getting to do what it is that I love every single day. It's tough work, but it is fun. It's so rewarding for me personally to have a partner tell me that they're really happy, they're excited, they love to see what they're doing. And a lot of that has to do with some of the work that I've been able to do with many of the team members that we have on our staff. And it's a very rewarding and humbling experience. And just never give up on your dreams. Your path to wherever you end up going could look completely different than what your final destination is. But everything that you do along the way is going to be the building blocks to get you to whatever your dream is.
Yeah, totally. And on that note of kind of that your path may look different, why I wanted to talk about leaving things better than you found them is that not every career opportunity or role that you play in is always going to align directly with what your dream maybe is at the time or will evolve to be. But if you really think about in your role, we're all part of an organization. We're all part of an organization's culture. So if in that role you can leave things better, even if you do leave after 2 or 3 years in a position, you always want that organization to look fondly at the contributions that you made in that time. And so you're either leaving things better in terms of the culture that you play a part in creating for your coworkers at that time and onward, or just leave things better for the next person that has to come into that role and, basically leave the ladder after you climb it. Don't pull it up so that somebody can't come right after you, because that's what it's all about. Like, the best way to have power is to give it away. And I also wanted to know just about skills. And that doesn't only mean like technical skills, though I think those obviously will never betray you, because whether you apply your technical skills in the current role that you're in or not, it does display, just like education does, that you can accomplish hard things and that you have the discipline to be able to, hone your skills and develop your skills over time. So if you're lost and you don't know exactly what it is that you want to do in the future, the best thing you can do is to not just let the time pass you by, is to think about what skills you can be developing. And even those skills will help you determine the best place to utilize them that will give you, the culture fit you want, the industry that you're interested in. I just think that they're a great launch pad, and they're a good thing to kind of spend time developing while you're developing also what it is that you want out of your career. Because where you are right now and at your age, that could definitely change. I never thought that I would work in athletics until about like a year ago. So I was spending a lot of my career energy, forging down another path, but that I didn't have to back up any and start over again. I just moved over because I was developing skills that would also translate. So yeah, I think that that's pretty much what we have for you. And we're really excited to hear any questions that you might have.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Chanel and Caity. That was so inspiring. And we just want to open it up to the students that are on the call. If anyone would like to unmute, I know we have, I saw a couple questions come through the chat box. We have Patricia St. Lo manning the chat box, or womaning the chat box. And so she will just unmute if there's anything in the chat box. But at this time, if anyone on the call would like to unmute, go ahead.
Okay, so we have a question in the chat from Aaron. It's there are pro sports, semi-pro sports, and amateur sports. Can you talk about the difference in the field specifically around long-term opportunities as well as paid versus unpaid positions?
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of crossover with all of those options. You're really going to find those core departments like we had in the presentation across amateur, semi-professional, and professional sports. You'll probably see a larger staff with each of those. Right now, we are a front office staff of about 19. And if you were to look at a major league sport like, baseball or football, you'll probably see a staff of 100 plus. And so there's more opportunities that come with those larger organizations in terms of you're in a bigger market. There's probably going to be a lot more fans that are in attendance, and other things like that. But I think your experiences with all of them will really help you in the long run to get where you'd like to go. And in terms of unpaid or paid internships, my experience at Louisville City was an unpaid internship. I actually was able to get paid in credit hours towards my degree. I was required to have 2 internship experiences before graduation. So my first one was during the summer months at Louisville City. I was able to get a few credit hours by doing that. And I think that was really helpful to get to where I wanted to go. Although I wasn't getting, paid with money, I was getting paid in experience and knowledge and just a really good foundation for what I would be doing, today. And my experience at UFC was a paid internship, but the same principles applied. I was still able to get college credit by doing that. I really think that no matter what, if you were to find an unpaid internship, you would for sure want to figure out if that can go towards your college credits, because that's really what's going to make it worthwhile. It's also a much better experience, in my opinion, because they're really going to put forth the effort and the time to really train you and teach you things and get you involved. You're not doing busy work at that point.
Thank you.
Definitely. And I would just add too, a lot of people make their full careers in what you might call like a semi-professional or second team or anything like that. What's great about athletics is that it's so regional a lot of the time. I mean, obviously there are Dallas Cowboy fans in, Augusta, Maine, but really a lot of the work for front office is surrounding the games and the immediate sort of market that you're in. So you can grow by kind of going to different teams. It's not like just because one person's doing it here that the next state over somebody's not doing that, because each team has its own sort of branding and culture and region that it works with. So there's a lot of opportunity. Mm-hmm. But you can also make a whole career around in at whatever level.
I think we just had another question come through the chat. Let's see if Patricia can tell us that one.
And this question's from Chris O'Connor. And she asks, can you speak to any particular experiences in high school that you look back on that really impacted your educational and career pathway successful, or things you wish you had taken advantage of that you didn't?
Sure, I can start. So unlike Caity, I wasn't really that athletic in high school and college. And so I'm sure there's there's lots there that's very beneficial. I was in student council, and that really did a lot for me because we actually had to conduct a lot of projects on our own. A lot of things that I think people assumed were just managed by the school were actually managed by the student body leadership. And so things like prom and all of those decorations and pep rallies, like programming those from start to finish. I mean, that was my first exposure to thinking things through from a logistical standpoint in terms of like, okay, we have this idea. Well, actually, even going a step prior to that, we have a lot of ideas from a lot of different people. That's something that we still work with every day. And like going from brainstorm to execution is a skill within itself to just be able to map that out. So being able to say like, okay, we have all these themes, and then we select a theme and begin purchasing and work backwards from when something arrives to when we actually want to conduct the event, assembly times, and how many people are we going to need. So that's where I was able to begin developing more of like an organizational mindset, which was a little different than just being organized, though that helps. And then I know this is specific to high school, but a little bit for whatever opportunities are in high school, and then also like thinking about going into college or different fellowship programs. I have a regret of not taking advantage of opportunities to travel internationally through school or through service trips, through study abroad programs. It has always seemed impossible to do the fundraising, and I definitely still understand that there are financial barriers there, but there are also some resources that could help that I just never took initiative to try to figure out. And I have friends that have had those experiences, and it really just taught them a lot about themselves and a lot about what they wanted out of life, which for me, as somebody who's like really into work and kind of defines myself by my work, to learn more about what I wanted out of life would have also really, informed what I wanted out of work as well.
Yeah, and I think for me, I was quite the introvert in high school. So I feel as though I might not have taken advantage of as many opportunities looking back on it that I should have. I was the captain of my high school softball team. And with that came a lot of fundraising responsibilities. And, we were doing car washes in order to buy our uniforms and, different fun things that we were able to do through that. So I think, it taught me hard work and logistics and really what it would take to go into doing something like that. You think, just being on a team, you were gifted these jerseys and your socks and everything else, but you really did, and at least in my experience in my hometown, you had to work for it, and a lot of times it was by doing things like that. Like I said, I wish I had taken more advantage of those opportunities looking back, and getting more involved with like student government or anything that my school really had to offer. I think it would have it definitely gives you critical thinking skills and other opportunities like that. I ended up getting a job when I was 16 and had to help my family pay bills and everything. So that was really my focus, was to do that. I worked in retail and was able to learn customer service skills and a lot of different things outside of the classroom that I honestly still use every single day. To this day.
And your killer work ethic. If you've been working that long, that explains a lot, as somebody that works with Caity. Definitely puts in the hours and, always gets things done. So if you're in a position, just speaking to the students right now, similarly, like where you're working, I think that just kind of goes back to the point about skills not betraying you. Like as much as you can, take kind of a very whole participation in whatever it is that you're doing and try to learn like the things that managers in retail or food service would be telling you, like maybe think one step past of like, what is the reason? Like, what is the reason that I have to refold all of these shirts just because somebody went and ticked through, and it'll help you kind of think through like, oh, well, because the way the store looks is really important. Like, why is that? Oh, because it fits in with the brand of, whatever store that you're at, and watch what that brand wherever you're working is like doing on social media, and see the way that they talk about, it all kind of comes back down to that like customer experience moment, or that like moment where you're doing something that seems kind of tedious, but it can be fun to see how it ties into that big picture too.
Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you so much, Caity and Chanel. I'm going to wrap us up just to be respectful of everyone's time. So students, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed today's program. But before we log off, there's just a couple announcements. So following the presentation, you'll be asked to complete a post-program mindset survey. By completing the survey, you'll be entered into a drawing for a chance to win a Dion's gift card. A huge thank you to Dion's, who has graciously partnered with Junior Achievement to provide gift cards to some lucky survey respondents after these events. Teachers, please make sure that you send the links to your students that you have on the call with you. We will be deciding our winner on Tuesday, September 14th, so make sure you have that survey completed by Friday. And lastly, keep an eye out on your emails to make sure that you don't miss out on next week's presentation. Next week, we'll have Todd Bizio, the Director of Operations for LoadPath. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Caity and Chanel. It was a pleasure to do this with you guys. Thank you for your patience, and we'll see you guys next time.